Okay, we are back, and we're going to move forward to the meat of the lesson, and give you a good word from the Lord to help us understand what Psalms 91 is saying to us. But before I go there, I want to mention some stats that I mentioned earlier because of the epidemic and the pandemic that we find ourselves in. In the total cases worldwide, over 2 million cases, and over 160,000 deaths. Total cases in the United States, 760, and 40,000 deaths. But God will not only keep us from this evil, but from the fear of evil. God says in verse 3 that he will deliver us. So as we move forward, and I want you to stay with me in stanza 4. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler, and the word trust is chasha, which means to flee to for refuge. In other words, in the NLT, it tells us that he will cover you with his feathers. He will shelter you with his wings. His faithful promises are your armor and your protection. And in this verse, feather and wings are here, they're figurative of protection and care. So whatever this great danger may be, we need not fear it. For God shall cover us, and that God himself will be our protector. Do you know the safest place in the world is wherever someone is covered by God's truth? God likens himself in this text to a mother hen sheltering her young from the hawks of the sky and the snares of the field. By natural instincts, she not only protects them, but calls them under that protection when she sees them in danger. Not only keeps them safe, but cherishes them and keeps them warm. The shield refers to a large shield that covers the entire body, while the buckler refers to something that surrounds a person. The shield and the buckler protected the body, the vital parts, from the weapons thrust and the arrows of the enemy. The protection provided by the Lord is his faithfulness. As we go to Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter, verse 9. But God is as willing to guard his people as the hen is to guard the chickens, and as able as a man of war in trouble. But God's truth protects us from whatever the enemy throws at us. His truth leads us to understand absolute right and wrong, which God's word reveals to us. So if we surround ourselves in his truth, we will have a safe starting point. As we move on to stanza 5, Psalms 91 tells us that thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by the day. In other words, do not be afraid of the terrors of the night, nor the arrows that fly by day. See, there are threatening situations both day and night from which the Lord will keep us safe. So we should not be afraid. We know that God's protection of those who dwell in the secret place is constant and never failing, day or night. Fear is an enemy with the power to create torment and disruptive behavior. Fear also has the power to neutralize a person's deep faith and absolute trust in the power and the wisdom of God. And I want you to go to 2 Timothy, the first chapter, verse 7. So when the children When the children of God believe in the faithfulness of God and the unchanging power of his promise to protect them, to lead and provide for them, it lays a strong foundation for exercising absolute confidence in his ability to provide for their spiritual salvation too. But when a child of God dwells in his secret place, there is no reason to be frozen because of the terror that comes by night or the arrow that flieth by day. Stanza 6 takes us on a journey to the pestilence. Nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness. Night is a time for many terrors. When I was a young kid, they used to have this character called the Boogeyman. And this joker inflicted a lot of terror in the lives of young kids. Who was that guy? But nighttime is the time for many terrors. And not for the destruction that wasteth in the noonday, but dangers that also come by day. He tells us in the NLT to do not dread the disease that stalks in darkness, nor the disaster that strikes by midday. But if you notice, God names the evil of pestilence twice. And since God doesn't waste words, he must have a specific reason for repeating this promise. Have you ever noticed when a person says something more than once? It is usually because he wants to emphasize a point. I'm sure all of us had a mother who called that name 2 or 3 times, and if she said the whole name twice, you know you was in trouble. But God knew the pestilence and the fear that will be running rampant in these end days. The world today is overrun with fatal epidemics, pandemics, and it's hitting people by the thousands. So God catches our attention by repeating this promise. He tells us again, you don't have to be afraid of the deadly pestilence. See, this is contrary to the world's thinking. That's why we have to have a renewed mind. That's why we have to have renewed thinking. So where is your faith? See, faith is simply choosing to believe what he says in his word. The more you choose to believe God's word, the more you will know that you can trust and rely on it completely. No evil has been conceived by man against which God has not provided a promise of protection for any of his children who will choose to believe it and act on it. Destruction also takes in the evils over which mankind has no control. Those things the world ignorantly calls acts of God. Tornadoes, floods, earthquakes, hurricanes. Yet God very plainly tells us that we are not to fear destruction. There is no place in the world that you can go and be safe from every destruction, every natural disaster. But we can never anticipate what might come when we least expect it. But no matter where you are in the world, God says, run to his shelter where you will not be afraid of the destruction. Stay with me here. The Lord's faithful protection is consistent, though. His guardianship of the Lord is active throughout the entire day, indeed for all time, for the one hiding in his presence. The Lord is ever ready in his love and his power to defend and protect us from the challenges that the enemy has designed to destroy us and to destroy our goals and efforts as we press forward according to God's plan for our lives. Stanza 7 takes us to another part of what this pestilence does. 1,000 shall fall by the side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Or in the NLT, though 1,000 fall at your side, then 10,000 are dying around you, and these evils will not touch you. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to become fearful when disaster strikes around you? When Peter walked on the water, he took his eyes off of Jesus and he began to sink. Matthew 14:28. But here, God knew that there would be times when we would hear so many negative reports, see so many needs, and encounter so much danger around us that we would feel overwhelmed. That is why he warned us ahead of time that thousands would be falling all around us. And he did not want us to be caught off guard. But we have a choice. The ball now is in our court. You can either choose to run to his shelter in faith, and the storm will not approach you, or you can passively live your life the way that the world does, not realizing that there is something that you can do about it. Stanza 8 tells us that only thine eyes shall thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. He says, just open your eyes and see how the wicked are punished. So verse 8 says that we will only look on and see. See it happening. The word only tells us that we will be protected by not experiencing evil, even though we will see it. In other words, the righteous are so safe in disaster all around them that they are basically only spectators. So as we go to Psalms, the 37th book of Psalms, stanza 34, follow me to my next outline.